Mayday, Mayday, TWA 800 Heavy, we have an explosion aboard the aircraft. The voice crackles through the static-filled radio transmission before cutting to absolute silence, leaving air traffic controllers staring at their radar screens in horror, as Flight 800's blip simply vanishes from existence over the dark Atlantic waters. On the evening of July 17, 1996, what began as a routine summer flight from New York to Paris transformed into one of aviation's most devastating and controversial disasters, claiming 230 innocent lives in a spectacular fireball that lit up the night sky like a deadly constellation. Families heading to romantic European getaways, business travelers pursuing their dreams, and crew members with decades of experience all found themselves aboard a Boeing 747 that would become the center of the most extensive aviation investigation in American history. The passengers settled into their seats that warm July evening, completely unaware that they had just 12 minutes and 42 seconds left to live. 12 minutes before their aircraft would tear itself apart in a catastrophic explosion that would send shockwaves through the aviation industry and haunt investigators for years to come. This is the terrifying true story of TWA Flight 800, a tragedy so devastating and mysterious that it would change how we understand aircraft safety forever. Transworld Airlines Flight 800 departed John F. Kennedy International Airport at 8:19 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Wednesday, July 17, 1996, carrying 212 passengers and 18 crew members aboard a Boeing 747-131 aircraft that had been in service for 25 years. The magnificent jumbo jet, registration number N93119, had accumulated over 93,000 flight hours and completed more than 16,000 flight cycles during its quarter-century of reliable service, making it a seasoned workhorse of the TWA fleet that had safely transported millions of passengers across the world's oceans without major incident. Captain Ralph Kevorkian, a highly experienced pilot with over 5,000 hours on the Boeing 747, commanded the flight alongside First Officer Stephen Snyder and Flight Engineer Richard Campbell, forming a crew with combined decades of aviation expertise and more than 40,000 total flight hours between them. The passenger manifest read like a beautiful cross-section of humanity, pursuing dreams and adventure across international boundaries, including 16 members of the Montourville Area High School French Club from Pennsylvania heading to Paris for what should have been the educational adventure of a lifetime. These bright young students, chaperoned by dedicated teachers who had spent months planning every detail of their cultural exchange program, carried passports stamped for their first international journey and hearts full of excitement about experiencing the City of Lights museums, cafes, and historic landmarks. Among the other passengers sat couples celebrating milestone anniversaries who had saved for years to afford this romantic getaway to France, families with children embarking on dream vacations that represented months of planning and anticipation, and business travelers pursuing professional opportunities that would expand their company's international presence. The Boeing 747-131 that would become known as Flight 800 represented the pinnacle of 1970s aviation technology, having first taken flight on November 19, 1971, during an era when wide-body aircraft were still considered marvels of engineering that had revolutionized commercial aviation. The aircraft's impressive safety record included thousands of successful flights across the world's most challenging routes, from turbulent Atlantic crossings during winter storm seasons to long-haul Pacific journeys that tested both crew endurance and mechanical reliability. Its distinctive hump-shaped upper deck, massive wingspan, and 4 powerful Pratt & Whitney engines had carried passengers safely through thunderstorms, ice storms, and high-altitude turbulence that would ground smaller aircraft, earning the trust of crews and passengers who relied on its proven ability to handle whatever challenges nature might present. However, beneath its reliable exterior lay the same vulnerability that affected every aging aircraft in the world's commercial fleet: the gradual deterioration of electrical systems, fuel lines, and structural components that occurs inevitably as aircraft accumulate flight hours and calendar years in service. As passengers boarded Flight 800 through JFK's Gate 27, they carried with them the usual mixture of anticipation, nervousness, and excitement that accompanies international travel, completely unaware that their aircraft's center wing tank contained a deadly mixture of conditions that had been developing over months of normal operation. The boarding process proceeded with typical efficiency as flight attendants checked boarding passes, helped passengers stow carry-on luggage, and provided assistance to families traveling with young children who were beginning their first transatlantic adventure. Conversations in the cabin reflected the diverse purposes of the journey, from excited teenagers comparing their French phrasebooks to business travelers reviewing presentation materials for upcoming meetings in Paris and other French cities where their professional endeavors would expand their company's international operations. Parents helped children find their assigned seats while explaining the duration of the flight and what they could expect during their time in France, creating the kind of warm family atmosphere that transforms anonymous passengers into a temporary community bound together by shared destination and common hopes for a safe, pleasant journey. The Boeing 747 climbed steadily through the evening sky above Long Island, its 4 engines pushing the massive aircraft toward its assigned cruising altitude, while passengers settled in for the long journey across the Atlantic Ocean. Flight attendants moved through the cabin with practiced efficiency, serving drinks and ensuring passenger comfort while the aircraft maintained its eastbound heading along the established air traffic control route that would take them over the North Atlantic toward European airspace. Below them, the lights of suburban Long Island communities twinkled like earthbound stars as families enjoyed summer barbecues and children played in backyards, creating the peaceful rhythms of American summer life that contrasted sharply with the drama about to unfold thousands of feet above their heads. The cockpit voice recorder captured routine communications between the pilots and various air traffic control facilities as Flight 800 checked in with different control sectors, with nothing in the crew's professional voices suggesting any awareness of the mechanical time bomb ticking in the aircraft's fuel system. Captain Kevorkian and his experienced crew followed standard operating procedures with the precision that comes from years of training and practical experience, monitoring engine parameters, fuel consumption rates, cabin pressurization, and dozens of other flight systems, while maintaining clear professional communication with ground controllers, who guided their path through the busy New York metropolitan airspace. The flight's progress appeared completely normal on radar screens and air traffic control facilities, with the aircraft maintaining proper altitude, heading, and airspeed while following the prescribed route that would take them safely away from other aircraft operating in the congested airspace surrounding one of the world's busiest airport systems. Passengers gazed out their windows at the gradually fading American coastline, many taking final photographs of familiar landmarks before settling in with books, movies, or conversations about their upcoming Parisian adventures, completely unaware that their aircraft's center wing tank had become a volatile chemical reaction, waiting for the smallest electrical spark to transform their peaceful journey into absolute nightmare. The center wing tank, located in the aircraft's lower section between the main landing gear wells, contained approximately 50 gallons of Jet A fuel that sloshed gently as the aircraft climbed through varying atmospheric pressures and temperatures. This seemingly routine fuel quantity represented the remnant of a much larger fuel load that had been consumed during the aircraft's previous flights, leaving behind not just liquid fuel, but also invisible vapors that mixed with oxygen in the tank's empty space to create an explosive atmosphere that aviation engineers were only beginning to understand in 1996. The fuel vapors, heated by the aircraft's air conditioning system and various electrical components located near the tank, reached a concentration that fell within the explosive range for hydrocarbon vapors, creating conditions similar to those found in a gasoline storage tank where the slightest ignition source can trigger catastrophic combustion. Unknown to the crew, passengers, and ground controllers monitoring the flight's progress, TWA 800 had become a flying bomb where aging electrical wiring, inadequate fuel tank protection systems, and insufficient understanding of fuel vapor dynamics combined to create a scenario that investigators would later describe as an accident waiting to happen. The aircraft's electrical systems, designed according to 1970s aviation standards, included thousands of feet of wiring that had gradually deteriorated during 25 years of service in the challenging environment of commercial aviation operations. Temperature extremes ranging from sub-zero conditions at high altitudes to desert heat during ground operations, combined with constant vibration from engine operation and the flexing of the aircraft's structure during flight, had gradually weakened wire insulation and created microscopic gaps where electrical current could arc across small distances. These tiny electrical discharges, invisible to routine maintenance inspections and too small to trigger circuit breakers, nonetheless carried enough energy to ignite fuel vapors under the right conditions, turning the aircraft's fuel system into a potential ignition source that could destroy the entire aircraft in seconds. Aviation maintenance procedures in 1996 focused primarily on obvious mechanical failures, structural cracks, and engine problems, rather than the subtle degradation of electrical systems that occurs gradually, over years of service, without creating obvious symptoms. At exactly 8:31 p.m. and 12 seconds, as Flight 800 climbed through 13,700 feet, approximately 12 miles south of East Moriches, Long Island, the unthinkable happened with devastating suddenness that left no time for emergency procedures, prayers, or final goodbyes. The explosive mixture in the center wing tank found its ignition source when electrical energy traveled along deteriorated wiring and created a spark that instantly transformed 50 gallons of fuel vapor into a massive fireball that generated pressures far beyond the structural limits of the Boeing 747's fuselage and wings. The explosion occurred with such tremendous force that it instantly tore the aircraft into multiple sections, separating the nose section containing the cockpit and first-class passengers from the main fuselage, while simultaneously destroying the aircraft's structural integrity and rendering impossible any form of controlled flight or emergency landing procedure. The aircraft broke apart at 13,700 feet above the Atlantic Ocean, with no possibility of survival for any of the 230 souls aboard. Witnesses on the ground across Long Island described seeing a brilliant flash of light that briefly outshone the evening stars, followed by a massive fireball that illuminated the darkening sky like artificial daylight, while burning debris began its deadly descent from the heavens in a horrifying display that would haunt their memories forever. The initial explosion sent the aircraft's nose section, containing Captain Kevorkian, his crew, and dozens of passengers, plummeting immediately toward the Atlantic Ocean, while the main fuselage, still containing most of the passengers and driven forward by residual momentum, continued its eastward trajectory for several more seconds before aerodynamic forces caused it to break apart further and follow its own deadly path into the dark waters below. The aircraft's wings, fuel tanks, engines, and tail section separated from the main structure and fell independently, creating a debris field scattered across several miles of ocean surface where each piece represented not just twisted metal and mechanical components, but fragments of human dreams and individual stories that had been violently interrupted by mechanical failure. Emergency response teams throughout Long Island received frantic telephone calls from witnesses reporting aircraft debris falling from the sky, with descriptions ranging from burning objects falling like rain to a huge explosion in the sky that prompted immediate activation of search and rescue protocols designed to respond to aviation disasters. The United States Coast Guard launched multiple vessels from stations across the region, while local police departments, fire departments, and emergency medical services mobilized resources for what they hoped would be a rescue operation, but feared would become a massive recovery effort when initial reports suggested the complete destruction of a large commercial aircraft. Fishing boats operating in the area immediately changed course toward the crash site coordinates, their crews hoping against hope to find survivors clinging to wreckage in the relatively calm waters, but instead discovering only floating debris, personal belongings, and the heartbreaking remnants of 230 individual lives that had been extinguished in a single moment of mechanical fury. The investigation that followed became the most complex, expensive, and comprehensive aviation accident inquiry in National Transportation Safety Board history, involving more than 300 investigators from multiple agencies and requiring 4 years of painstaking detective work that would ultimately revolutionize aircraft fuel tank safety protocols worldwide. FBI agents initially treated the crash as a potential criminal act due to witness reports of ascending light trails that some interpreted as possible missile strikes, leading to an exhaustive terrorism investigation that examined every passenger background, every piece of cargo, and every security procedure, while simultaneously working to recover and physically reconstruct the aircraft wreckage from the Atlantic Ocean floor. The massive underwater recovery operation, conducted in water depths ranging from 100 to 130 feet, required specialized diving equipment and salvage vessels that could safely lift heavy aircraft sections from the ocean floor without further damaging the evidence that investigators needed to determine the cause of the explosion. Navy divers, commercial salvage specialists, and underwater recovery experts worked for months in challenging conditions to retrieve approximately 95% of the aircraft's structure and 95% of the human remains, allowing investigators to piece together the final moments of Flight 800 like a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle made of twisted metal and human tragedy. The recovered wreckage was transported to a specially constructed hangar in Calverton, New York, where investigators carefully arranged the pieces according to their original positions in the intact aircraft, creating a partial reconstruction that revealed the pattern of structural damage and the sequence of events that led to the aircraft's destruction. Investigators discovered that the center wing tank explosion resulted from electrical energy that traveled along wiring bundles located near the tank and created sparks that ignited the explosive fuel vapor mixture that had accumulated during the aircraft's climb through varying atmospheric conditions. The inquiry revealed that aging aircraft wiring, combined with inadequate fuel tank inerting systems that failed to prevent the accumulation of explosive vapors, and insufficient maintenance procedures for detecting electrical system degradation, had created the perfect storm of conditions for catastrophic fuel vapor ignition that could theoretically have occurred on numerous other aircraft operating with similar configurations and age profiles. The National Transportation Safety Board's final report concluded that the probable cause of the TWA Flight 800 accident was an explosion of the center wing tank resulting from ignition of the flammable fuel vapor mixture by an unidentified ignition source located inside the center wing tank, with electrical energy as the most likely trigger for the catastrophic combustion that destroyed the aircraft and killed all 230 people aboard. The TWA Flight 800 disaster fundamentally transformed aviation safety standards and led to the implementation of comprehensive new regulations designed to prevent similar fuel tank explosions from occurring in the future. The Federal Aviation Administration mandated the installation of fuel tank inerting systems on commercial aircraft, requiring airlines to retrofit existing aircraft with technology that replaces oxygen in fuel tanks with nitrogen gas to prevent the formation of explosive fuel vapor mixtures. These inerting systems use onboard nitrogen generation equipment to maintain safe atmospheric conditions in fuel tanks throughout all phases of flight, eliminating the possibility of fuel vapor ignition regardless of electrical system failures or other potential ignition sources. Airlines worldwide invested billions of dollars in retrofitting existing aircraft with advanced safety systems, while aircraft manufacturers redesigned fuel tank configurations and electrical system layouts to eliminate the conditions that made Flight 800's explosion possible. The 230 victims of TWA Flight 800, ranging in age from 1-year-old to 93 years old, became unwilling catalysts for safety improvements that have protected countless other passengers from experiencing similar fates during the decades since this tragedy reminded the aviation industry that mechanical systems are only as reliable as their weakest components. Their deaths led directly to the development of technologies and procedures that have made commercial aviation significantly safer for millions of passengers who board aircraft every day without knowing the names or stories of the people whose sacrifice contributed to their protection. Family members of Flight 800 victims established memorial foundations and safety advocacy organizations that continue supporting aviation safety research while keeping alive the memory of loved ones who died not from pilot error or weather conditions, but from mechanical aging that the industry had not yet learned to adequately address through proactive maintenance and design improvements. The investigation's findings highlighted the critical importance of understanding how aircraft systems deteriorate over time and the need for proactive rather than reactive safety measures that address potential problems before they manifest as catastrophic failures. Flight 800's explosion occurred because a combination of factors including aging wiring, inadequate fuel tank protection, and insufficient understanding of fuel vapor dynamics created a deadly scenario that investigators described as waiting to happen, rather than being a freak accident that couldn't be prevented through better design, maintenance, or regulatory oversight. The disaster prompted development of new technologies, including advanced wiring diagnostic systems that can detect electrical insulation degradation before it creates ignition hazards. improved fuel additives that reduce vapor formation in aircraft tanks, and enhanced training programs that teach maintenance crews to identify and address aging aircraft vulnerabilities before they compromise flight safety. Modern aircraft maintenance procedures now include comprehensive electrical system inspections that would have detected the wiring degradation that contributed to Flight 800's explosion, ensuring that aging aircraft receive the proactive maintenance necessary to identify and address potential problems before they threaten flight safety. These inspections use advanced diagnostic equipment that can detect insulation degradation, connection problems, and other electrical issues that might not be obvious during routine visual inspections, but could create ignition sources under the right conditions. The regulatory framework that governs commercial aviation safety now includes mandatory reporting systems that allow aviation professionals to report safety concerns without fear of punishment, creating an information-sharing network that helps identify potential problems before they result in accidents. Flight data monitoring systems installed on modern commercial aircraft continuously record hundreds of parameters related to aircraft performance and system operation, creating comprehensive databases that allow safety analysts to identify trends, unusual events, and potential safety issues before they result in accidents or incidents. Research and development efforts continue advancing aviation safety through new materials, improved manufacturing techniques, and innovative technologies that address safety challenges identified through accident investigations and operational experience. International cooperation in aviation safety continues expanding through organizations that coordinate global efforts to share safety information, harmonize regulations, and ensure that safety improvements developed in one country benefit aviation safety worldwide. Today, as modern passengers board commercial aircraft equipped with fuel tank inerting systems, advanced wiring protection, and comprehensive safety monitoring equipment that emerged directly from Flight 800's tragedy, they benefit from safety improvements that have made commercial aviation statistically safer than automobile travel or many other activities that people engage in without significant safety concerns. The nitrogen inerting systems that prevent fuel vapor explosions operate silently and invisibly during every flight, creating safe atmospheric conditions in fuel tanks while passengers read books, watch movies, or sleep peacefully, completely unaware of the complex safety systems that protect them from experiencing the fate that befell Flight 800's passengers and crew members. If this comprehensive exploration of TWA Flight 800 has helped you understand the incredible complexity involved in aviation safety and the continuous efforts required to protect passengers from mechanical failures and other hazards, please show your support by subscribing to our channel where we explore the lessons learned from aviation's most significant accidents and the professionals who work tirelessly to prevent future tragedies. Share this video with others who appreciate understanding the real stories behind aviation safety improvements, and remember that every safety system protecting you during your next flight exists because investigators, engineers, and safety professionals refuse to accept that tragedies like Flight 800 were inevitable consequences of human flight. The memory of TWA Flight 800 and its 230 victims lives on, not just in the hearts of families who lost loved ones, but in every commercial flight that lands safely, because the aviation industry learned from this disaster and implemented comprehensive safety improvements that honor those who were lost while protecting those who continue to fly.